done. And then I've got a clicker, so I've got a clicker. Can you guys all see the screen? That's on virtual? Okay, great. So I think we're ready. So I provided a packet for all of you guys that includes, there are a few things in the packet. There's our new preceptor manual. So we've been working very hard on this. It's going to be a part of our 2022 standards. It looks like a huge document. I'm not expecting you guys to read it, be familiar with it, and sit on it at any time. But because it's such a huge document, the hugeness comes from all the appendices. So our appendices are really just to help you guys if you need a reference to things like our evaluation sheets, our submissions for activity, the site evaluations, what the interns are expecting. I've been through this whole thing with them. And we also have a student manual, so they've got a manual pretty similar. Same thing, it's got all the appendices. One of the things we've been working on very hard for 2022 is policies and procedures. Of course, for a lot of those, we hope we never have to really use them. If we ever get to a place where things have to be pretty standardized based on things like remediation, or they're absent, or they're late all the time, or whatever, then we have very, very specific policies and procedures to adhere to. So if there's ever a time where, hopefully there won't be anything negative, but if there's ever a time where there is anything negative, then we have standards to follow. And then, of course, most of it is positive. I just wanted to refer to that just so that you know that this is a great resource for you guys. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But the other thing that's part of your packet is you'll see that there's a checklist for a sign-off sheet. And on that sign-off sheet, and I'll send to the guys that are online or those that are going to get a recorded version of this that can't attend today, I'm going to email all of this to all the preceptors so that they can say they at least had access to the handbook and you've got it as a reference. And then you also had some kind of training, like what I'm going to do now. It won't take me long to go through what's new for 2022, or followed a recorded version of what I'm doing today. I also have put in there that there are standards that you can follow. There's a link to Dr. Williams did a presentation for our interns a couple of weeks ago when we started orientation to tell them what the Senate 2022 standards mean, so that they have a great expectation of why we do what we do and why we ask them to do all this homework and to record their CRDNs, etc., etc. So when you're done with this training, you guys will get it out the way today. I just ask for you to sign it at the back, say that you have access to the training in some way, and then we've covered the US preceptor for our training. So I'm going to point out a couple of things that are new to 2022, because as you know, SEND standards changed from 2017 to 2022, and we are now in compliance with 2022 as far as the program goes. For those of you that don't know, we are in the process of being audited. We're going to be through our audit cycle, which Quasi, I, and Dr. Williams and our upper administration are working with help of faculty, are working very, very hard on our self-study report. We're going to be ready to hand it into our upper administration next month, and then they're going to get it ready to hand into a SEND for December, and we have an on-site visit in February. So all of this is part of the fact that we had to do this for being audited. It's also, I think it was a great exercise in that we know how to move forward and continue to improve every year. Okay. So the faculty for the program is me, Miss Michelle, who I say Miss Michelle because I'm saying that was the intern with you, as you know, Michelle, who's on maternity leave right now. We can't wait for her to come back. She's due back towards the end of October, I believe. So I'm very much looking forward to her coming back. And then upper administration and Kathy, who's our campus RD, their contact information is further books, but if you need to get hold of anybody on campus, you can go through me. Okay, so that's just the actual intern faculty. You guys all know Ascend, right? Through the internship, as we just mentioned. So Ascend is our accreditation council, who we're very much looking forward to coming on campus and telling us that we're doing an amazing job very soon. But they're involved in making sure that we're following their standards. Everything is legally organized. We have sufficient resources. We are well managed. We're reaching our goals and objectives, and we're going to go through what those are in a minute. And that our curriculum assures that our interns are gaining what they need to be to become competent and entry-level dietitians by the time they're finished with us. And then through Preceptor, they rotate through the different genre. I like to call it genres, but community, food service management, clinical, and then they have what we call an elective, where they can pick an area of interest. I have told them many times that I can't always give them that, especially COVID, smoke in the wheel, that level of elective can sometimes overlap with you guys. Some of them want to continue with a couple extra weeks of clinical, or they might enjoy what they do with you as on a wellness level. But I do try and fulfill, like, for example, we do have campus RD and I'm a sports dietitian, so, we've got access to those. A lot of interns tend to lean towards sports athletics. And then there's some other areas that they might be very specific in. But we do have to have contracts with every site, and that's we're going to be very, very strict with compliance for standards. So just to go through the objectives of what I want to talk about today is understanding the preparation of the role of a preceptor for our program, the evaluation that we do for interns and preceptors, and vice versa. The interns will also do evaluations of us, preceptors and sites, and then you guys obviously are going to do your evaluation of the interns and their level of competence. Understand the assessment, that's the next one, and then the role of how we improve our continuous improvement cycle every year. So this is part of the self-study report. All the information that we're going to talk about and what I get back from you and what I get back from the interns goes into a big template that is going to give us to say, what are we going to change next year? So this year was huge because we changed from 2017 to 2022 standards. But I've already got things after completing an orientation with the interns. I've already got things I'm thinking about for next year. They thank me what they thought about our orientation. One of the things that changed from last year to this year, just so that you know, I had a lot of guest speakers in orientation, and one of the comments I had was, let's spend more time on DPD review instead of too many guest speakers. So that's one of the things I changed. I had no guest speakers during orientation other than maybe the library or the registrar's office or on-campus stuff. And then my didactic days I used for guest speakers instead. So I think one of the things that came out actually in the review is that unfortunately we didn't do much food service management in review, but I said I'll try and get that on in an early didactic day. And I do have a whole food service review for them from me, but Fuzzy's going to be our food service management guest speaker. So if any of you guys would like to be guest speakers on a didactic day, I will send out a request. You guys are online too. I'm going to send out a request with the Mondays that are open, and we would love to have you come in. I know Julie came in last year. We loved it. So if it's something you would like to do again, I know that Kathy spoke last year, Fuzzy spoke. We did have a couple from our clinical organizations that are on. We didn't have anyone from Calcutta, but we've got some communities, so we would love it if you guys would like to be guest speakers. All right, so we'll get into that. And then, of course, we had a lot of changes over the summer to comply with 2022 standards. So, our mission as a university is to empower students with education, skills, and values to maximize perfection within and based upon a vitalistic philosophy. So that's the university's mission. Also, Life University is committed to a global vision and excellence in teaching, learning, and research, providing an exceptional student experience leading to a life of integrity and lasting purpose. So that's what we fall under as our big umbrella. But within our program itself, we have our own mission. And I discussed this with the interns, and a lot of our DPD review falls around this because of the scientific-based practice that we have to keep, etc. So I'm just going to read our mission to you, and it's all in the books. The mission of the internship program is to ensure that graduates are adequately prepared through didactic and supervised practice for entry-level nutrition-related positions, where they will apply evidence-based practice to promote the health of both communities and individuals. And we thank you guys deeply for the work that you help us provide to meet this mission, which leads us to our goals and our objectives. Because without you guys, there's no way we could be meeting these. And to tell you that we have been meeting these for the last 7 years, because that's how long the accreditation cycle comes up. So we're very excited to say that we are in compliance right now, and we're obviously looking forward to our audit. We're also in, it's always nerve-wracking, but the fact that these are our objectives and we're ready to present to them that up till now we have been meeting these. And that is that upon completion of the program, the graduates will be qualified and prepared for a variety of career opportunities in the field of dietetics And the objective to reach that is 80% of the enrolled students will complete their program within, we hope, the 9 months that we provide them, but they do get a couple extra months. Sometimes if remediation has to happen or something big happens and they go over the time period. A great example of that was in COVID. A couple of my interns did not have an opportunity to go to a clinical site, and they did case studies and they got their verification statements. I know Caroline's part of that group, but it was very tough because I got a lot of pushback saying, this is what I came here for and this is what I paid here for. But unfortunately, we didn't create COVID, and COVID has caused a lot of spokes in a lot of wheels, right? But what happened with 2 of them is I managed to find them rotations through the summer. So they had graduated, they had gotten their verification statement, but the preceptors were kind enough to say, okay, I'm happy to have them under my wing for a few weeks. And you know what? Both of them got jobs in clinical after that. So we're really grateful for those opportunities, even though they did accomplish what they needed to do through case studies. But like you guys have already said, on paper, it's a lot harder to know what you're really dealing with the patients. And in fact, I read some of the reviews they gave me today, and they said that I did a lot of role playing these last 2 weeks, but they said, we'd love to have more role playing. So they know that face-to-face client or wellness or patient is so valuable. The other objective is that, or the other goal is that we help them get into the field that they want to be in. So when they're seeking employment, we want to know that they're using their knowledge and their skills, and they have enough knowledge and skills to be responsible in those positions. So a lot of them don't even know what they really want right now. I mean, it's small enrollment this year, but like, Quasi said, a lot of times they think food service their head, but once they're in it, they love it. And very similar to clinical, a lot of them are very nervous about clinical, but once they're there and they're actually physically working on the electronic records, and I know Caroline can probably attest to that, it's a lot more fun than you think it's going to be. I know I was one of those, I do not want to be in the hospital. The only reason why I'm going through my internship is so that I can do it the right way and get the qualifications and then have my vision. But I actually did enjoy some of the clinical work. I maintained that. I didn't want to work in the hospital, but I loved doing the calculations and I learned so much. And now here I am helping these guys do that. Also, we hope that they're employed within 12 months. Those that are seeking employment, so 80% is our goal or our objective. We also have 80% of them who start in their first RD position or feel prepared, and the way we do that is we ask for surveys, and you guys will get surveys from me. I know Anna's already responded to one, and we appreciate it because survey response is always very low, but it is a way for us proving that we're meeting our objectives to ascend. And then this is the one that helped so much with Anna responding, and so you guys know that when you start responding to these things, it helps us know that we're meeting our goals. But this is a new one. So this year we wrote down that 80% of employers who surveyed will be satisfied with a graduate's preparation for entry-level practice. Any questions on mission goals? Okay. Moving on to what's new for 2022 and 2023. So I know this is probably very interesting for Asia as a recent graduate of the program, because there is a lot of change with the fact that we had to change from 2017 to 2022. But that group was so helpful, because what I did for that is I had an intermediate bridge the gap compliance between 17 and 2022. And you guys as preceptors were so helpful too, because there was that extra sheet. I couldn't mix up the numbers, and you were probably confused as to why am I getting 2 evaluations, but this is the very reason, is because they essentially changed all the numbering system on the CRDNs. And now we're in compliance, so you don't have to worry about numbers being skewed, but that was very helpful, and the wording on some of the CRDNs are slightly different. So what's new for 2022 is this, training. I will be offering annual training for preceptors just like this. You guys are my first group, but any new preceptors coming on board will be asked to do very similar to what we did today. Please read through the handbook, please make sure you follow some kind of reporting, or you come to a presentation, and then there is some recommended preceptor training on Ascend, which is listed in the handbook, that if you want to get some CEUs for preceptor training, to click on those, and actually they offer a decent amount, like there's at least 8 for a whole preceptor section. They also offer diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is one of your ethics that you can mark off as train, and then you also get CEUs for being a preceptor. I don't know if any of you guys know that, but I think Nations would know because they've sent it to me. They're not a lot of CEUs, but still, it's bonus because you all do volunteer work. So again, that's what's new for 2022 for preceptor training, as well as our new standards that we're now in compliance with. I've already talked a little bit about the self-study work with Big Do and our on-site work. What's going to happen in February with some of you guys, we're going to be asked to have the preceptors be a part of it. So we will see what a set one from us that we might be asking who's available on such and such a date and are willing to be a part of the interviews. I don't exactly know if they pick which preceptors they want, but anyway, you might be asked from us, and you know what that's all about. So as I mentioned, this is in the handbook and the manual that I gave you, but this is where you can click on links from online and do some extra preceptor training if you're so willing, and I, as a director, certainly encourage it, but at least you get some benefit by getting CEU points. So we will offer this, and as well as all the appendices in the manual, which gives you our way of standardizing policies, procedures, what's provided in the evaluations. And I've talked a lot to the interns about what they need to give you guys on day one. They arrive with the evaluation. They're nervous about that because they think like, do the preceptors know about this? I said, don't worry, the preceptors know everything. It's just that, you know, part of the procedure is that you take a responsibility in this role and you make sure you communicate with the preceptor that these are the things that I need to cover in this rotation. Sometimes they may not have the opportunity because, as many of you know, you have patients and clients, and they don't always get the opportunity. But we've also introduced mid-rotation interviews, so I think you're going to be excited about this because we need to some remediation somewhere. Yeah, so we put it in. Yeah, exactly. We did last year, which was very helpful. We sat and had a meeting because we had to, but now we're doing it because we want to catch problems in the bud a lot earlier. So any rotations that are greater than 2 weeks long, we will set up with me or Michelle a mid-rotation. If you want to do it more often, I'm very open to that because 8 weeks is a long time. But we're going to make it formal that at least mid-rotation we have a chat, and we do some kind of interview, and then exit rotation. Most of you are very good about this and have helped me a lot with this, but doing an exit interview with them and marking off the evaluation form and actually sitting with them and making sure you all sign off on it together. But they're going to talk, they know, they're going to come to you on the first day and say, hey, you know, now last week I'm going to ask you for some of your time and I'd like to get these in. And another thing that I've asked them to do is have weekly check-offs by you guys when they're precepting to make sure that they're putting their time logs in. Because last year I left it on the honor system and, you know, it's become a formalized, it has to be kind of rechecked. So it's still the honor system. I still feel like they are responsible adults, but I think we're just having a little check in between. Okay, so you'll notice in the manual there's lots and lots of appendices. So my suggestion is read through them when you've got time, and if you ever need them, then they're there. And there's a table of contents which makes it easy for you. Another thing that's new this year is that the terminology on the evaluations is slightly different. It doesn't really affect what you guys are doing. You're going to get the evaluation with ticking balls, meds, or not meds, etc. But this time I've now put a slide description of what we mean by E for exceptional, what we mean for M for meds or competent. And we've changed the NI, which used to stand for not needs improvement, to P, which now stands for progressing. Because if you read them through, exceeded is if they really are above entry level at that competency and they don't necessarily need extra hand holding or anything and they're starting to become independent, then we suggest putting in E. Most of them are going to get met for most things unless you really feel like they're exceptional, but they are showing entry level practice. And you know, obviously there's a place to make comments. Now what I've asked the interns to do, every time they get an evaluation from you guys, they are asked to keep a CRDN map themselves. I did this last year. They did check off on a CRDN, but this year I've actually made them put in a description of how they felt they met those competencies. So not just what the competency was, but how they met them. Now, Asia was actually a really good influence. She's online right now on that because the very first evaluation she handed back to me, she had all this narrative on there, and I'm like, You just need to check off if the evaluator gave you an E or an M or an, and she had this description, and I thought, you know what, that is excellent. It's one of our improvements, and it actually is a 2022 compliance standard. So being very innovative and the good student that she was, I've now implemented that. Of course, the students feel very overwhelmed by it, but I think they're going to gain a ton from that, and it's going to make the program actually improve tremendously, because it gives me a way of giving you guys suggestions on how some competencies can be met. So then there's times where they're not met. Those are the ones we've got to be careful of, because we're going to nip those in the bud if a remediation is needed. So not met means they had an opportunity, but they were not confident enough for you to sign off on them. Now, a past rotation could mean they still passing, but we don't want too many not mets. Otherwise, we're in trouble. So that's what we want to discuss in our mid rotation chat. Like last year, we didn't have a lot of not mets, to be honest. But again, you know, some of this is subjective, so communication is the best way to deal with this. And then there are those that are NOOs, which have no opportunity to observe. You might get an evaluation where you're asked to observe certain competencies, but there certainly is no opportunity just based on your client base or your patient base or whatever's going on. If that happens, again, I need to know those, and you will give them to me, but I'm going to try and provide an opportunity for every CRDN that I find not met as a group in the didactic days, so that we don't have any of the students left behind. Because by the end of it, the SEM want to know that every single competency by every student is met every time. And they have many opportunities to meet any one particular competency. But there are some things that are very particular to food service management that is their only opportunity. So I do a little food service management module, and Quasi as a guest speaker can also create some kind of activity at the end of that, so that we make sure that they are. But they've got a food service template that they provide you. I know you know about it. So any opportunity you've got, they're very worried about food service, to be honest, because that template is complicated. But as they're unfolding, they realize, and Asia can attest to that, you start to realize it's not as complicated as it seems when you haven't entered a site and you're just reading, well, I have to do all this, and I don't even know what it means, you know. So you guys can be very good narratives for us on that. So with the evaluation procedures, obviously there's great benefit for everybody. It provides us feedback. We get feedback during rotation, so this helps us improve our program. It helps us with early remediation. Of course, that's probably one of the biggest benefits, so nobody's left behind. And then we have these formal checkpoints. So what's new, like I said, is the rotation checkpoints with me or Michelle. And what we did have before, which we will keep, but that will change a little bit based on the fact that we can have lots of internal checkpoints, is that we still do a mid-program review with me or Michelle or both of us. And we'll still have, obviously, an exit interview. Now, the exit one is so beneficial if there's some NOOs and not METs, because that gives me an opportunity to find some kind of activity to ensure that every intern meets every objective, or every CRDN. And then, of course, if there is unsatisfactory, which we hope and pray that that doesn't come to be, but if it does, we have a standard way of dealing with it in our procedures and policies. Okay. They get a lot of modules and assignments, and they're going to share some of those with you, because what we've done with those is give you some suggested ideas. You don't have to use that suggestions for activities from me. However, it might be helpful if you'd like to. And I have told the interns, please communicate with your preceptors. If you're finding you're not getting the opportunity to do a particular competency, but it is available in that rotation, point the preceptor to say, hey, you know what, I spent so many hours mentoring others, can we start looking for a way I can maybe do a write assignment that my writing skills are evaluated, something like that, because they get many opportunities for all of these CRDNs, and we don't want to be too heavy on one and too light on others. So they will share their modules with you. And again, particularly for clinical, it always depends on patient base, right? However, I've given them a lot of modules for clinical. They might say to you, hey, I've got these cases in here, and I know you guys sometimes give them modules too, but give them as much work as you need to give them, but they might ask some questions based on their modules, and it gives you some suggestions if you don't have a patient that meets that competency. I've got a lot of ideas for food service, as you know, and like, let's just say they always got an opportunity to be waste management, but if they don't have an opportunity, there's a whole there's a whole you know, again, we so appreciate what you guys do. But anyway, those are very particular. So I'm not going to go through all of these because they're there in the table of contents, and I know you guys are eager to be done, and you've done the training, so you can follow along with the table of contents. And if there are any questions on any of those, you know, we are here, and we love you guys. So phone as often as you want, or email, or text, or whatever it is you need to do to contact us. So the didactic portion, just so that you guys know, we just did an intense 3 weeks, and those are a lot of the topics we covered. And again, they don't always get the opportunity to do a nutrition-focused physical exam, for example. I did cover that as a review skill, but I didn't physically make them role play that because I would love for them to do it on a real-life patient first. But if they don't have the opportunity, I will include it in the graduation week. So some of them last year we found, some of them did, some of them didn't. But we did have an opportunity towards the end for them all to do it, right? So, and then there's quite a lot of topics on there. We've covered all of those. The only one that seemed to be missing and noted was food service management, but I'm going to get that into an early didactic day because one of the interns that's going through food service management, not so much culture, but the other one's going through, she's also going to school, felt like food service management, they're feeling a little intimidated because I didn't review it. The thing with interns, though, I mean, I've just got to say this from a personal note, we're not really that responsible for DPD. You know, they're lucky that they have a 3-week orientation, to be honest, because it's really up to them to have their DPD skills in line. I told them, I know so many internship programs that don't even have an orientation section. You know, so they're lucky that they're getting DPD review, and it does help them bridge the gap between graduation and starting rotation. So they are responsible for their own skill set, but review is always very helpful. So one of the comments on the evaluation, by the way, was that I wish I had, Julie, like I wish I had a little bit more food service management review. So I'll do that early. Yeah, I'll do that early didactic days. Yeah, no, you guys do a great job. I think they feel intimidated because they don't know what to expect. Yeah, they are very two different. But again, we try to mix it up. We try to give them a little bit of school, a little bit of hospital. Yeah. And you know what? They also, school. And again, that might be a great improvement thought for next year is that maybe we really need to split it up into school and hospital and let them get both experience. Some of them do, but I don't always have the opportunity to do that. So, and then this year, another thing I've done this year, I know I did it with Caroline's group and Asia, they didn't really do it, but I did some pre-testing with them for CDR questions. You guys didn't do pre-testing, I mentioned it before I came, but I'm going to make them do a simulated CDR exam post-test, and I'm going to compare the results. So they're going to have a CDR simulated exam. Tracking, this is another thing we do. I did mention a little bit earlier on, but they're actually going to come to you with a spreadsheet at the end of each week and just ask you to put your signature on it. And then that way I can sign off in our tracking system, which is called TIFA, that they've been asked for hours, so they're aware that they're being monitored. So the time they arrive and the time they leave, they've already accumulated the 81 hours that they spent with me for the last 3 weeks, and I've signed off on that today. Okay. So if you have any questions on that, let me know. We do use Blackboard is our internal software, and they've got a place to upload once you've signed off on tracking, and then I'll sign it off on time. So that if there's any reconciliation that needs to be done, we'll chat. Usually, I do believe that on the system, they're adults, and they're here for a reason, so there's somewhat of an honest system. You don't have to monitor every single hour, just be aware of red flags. So that's what it's going to look like. It's going to have their name, their in out at the end of each week, and then there's a total. And if you want them to give it to you at the end of their whole rotation, I'm fine with that, although for an 8-week rotation, maybe at least every 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. And then, like I said, there'll be a final rotation evaluation. All of you are familiar with this. So I'm not going to worry too much about reading this because you've all done it. And I just mentioned the slight change in terminology. So, but they'll give you the evaluation before they the first day. So there's nothing really different about that, just a little bit of wording. I've already talked about this, but I've introduced this is new this year, is to have that mid-program assessment. And then a little bit of the gray area. So this is just fun to go over because so many preceptors say, or even the interns say, what counts as precepted hours or supervised hours and what doesn't. So the hours spent on projects assigned by me or Michelle in rotations can count as supervised hours, but maybe not. It might depend on you guys, right? So this is a gray area, but think about it. If they're doing work for me, but they can actually physically apply it to a client and they're asking you, or a patient, and they're asking you for advice, and they explain that this is homework that they've got, like for example, their case study, and you spending some time on helping them with it, you can certainly apply that to hours. But the time that they go home and make their PowerPoints, and they're spending time doing extra calculations, it's homework, and they don't really have you, and it's work that they should know, then that may not count for hours. But again, that's all in your court. So I know this week, it was very tough to sit with them 6 hours a day solid, which is what I counted for. So I gave them a lot of homework, and I just counted the homework because then I reviewed their homework. So I did count it as hours. But any material that they're creating for you, that they're spending time with you, that you don't consider homework, can count as hours. Obviously, counseling with patients and clients counts as hours. Gaining any extra interpersonal skills with your other staff, like especially for clinical, if they're working with occupational therapists and swallow therapists and PTs and shadowing nurses or doctors, that can certainly count as hours, and those are competencies because professional teamwork is a competency. And then any case study supervision that they do can count as hours. Now, I know you guys don't necessarily have a clinical case study, but like again, waste management can count as a case study. Some of those assignments I've given for food service can count as case study hours. What does not count is things that have nothing to do with your rotation. I told them that, and we all laughed together because that's kind of obvious, but students, interns, generation gap, they always try and get away with things like that. But studying for the RDN exam does not count as hours unless you tell them to spend time reviewing specific content because it's going to help apply to what you're working on at the time. So that's all up to you. That's the reason why it says sometimes. Other grade areas maybe, and I think I've already covered this, the case study, while they're creating their PowerPoints, they don't count unless they're sitting with you and you're helping with them and you're using the skill of writing and presenting as a CRDN, you can certainly count it. And then what can they log? Can they log hours from home? Absolutely. If it's an online rotation, like for example, sometimes CAPCA do have stuff that they'll do at home because you're not always in the office, and we have quite a few community sites that do that. You can certainly make what you decide count as hours, but if they're doing my assignments and it's got nothing to do with their rotation, you wouldn't make them. That's going to be me counting, and we don't want them double dipping. So unless you believe they should count as supervised practice hours experience, then they don't have to count. And then, you guys have a list of competencies. I put it in your handouts, but there are about 50 competencies, and you can also refer to the 2022 standards, and I put everything in the manual as well. So it's in multiple places for you guys if you ever want to refer to a full list, as well as what a sense wording is. So I think I've covered this. Basically, an idea of a CRDN might be, for example, they worded by saying, like, for example, 2.2 might be demonstrate professional writing skills and prepare for professional communications. I've asked them to say, how did they do that? So an example of that might be, I had to present a case study and write a paper for it. You can mark it off as a skill because those wordings make sense. But this year, we're really trying to actually put activities to CRDNs, not just the sense wording. So if you have any input from me on that, that would be very, very helpful. And that's a great example of CRDN's wording tends to make sense, but it doesn't say exactly how they did it. They just did it. Okay? How is going to become very important for our audit. And then, of course, I said you can do CPE hours. I put a direct link onto the sheets for you. I'm going to email all of this to all the preceptors after we're done with this. I'm hoping this recording will be available for those that didn't have an opportunity to be free today. But if I have to, I'm going to make a formal recording as well. So there'll be links and all of that. So feel free to apply for those CEU hours because you're worth it. I just want to touch a little bit on the education model because, there's a lot of listservs out there for educators in academia, and people are asking, like, what are you going to stand as a standalone program? And there's a listserv going around right now. You'd be surprised as how many programs are staying as a standalone, meaning that we only offer the internship. We're still within the university, so it's not standalone like Sodexo or whatever. But meaning that, the standards changed that from next year they have to have masters to be interns. So this is the last group that we're not allowed to, that could come into a program without a master's degree. So next year, they have to have a master's to even apply. So there are pros and cons. A future education model means actually combining the master's with an internship program. A lot of places are going that way and offering it. The pros of being a standalone is that we are still able to offer the program to those that already have a master's. So in other words, if they don't want to repeat a master's, they can do a standalone program. The con is we feel like enrollment is pretty low. I mean, enrollment is even down this year. COVID had a lot to do with low enrollment in general for a lot. I see a lot of schools on the list that enrollment is very low right now. We're a little concerned that until we do a future education model, we might have pretty low enrollment. But it is our intention. We have worked on it in the past. We did have a model. We put together a model. But as the audit came up to be closer and closer, we didn't have enough resources, faculty, time to be ready for a standard change as big as that and be audited at the same time. So it is on our horizon, but there's no any particular dates. We're still in pre-contemplation with that, right? As in stages of change. Any questions on that? Yeah. And then that's it. You've got our information. If you want to get hold of any of the others, preceptors are being blind copying everybody because it's just my way when it's a big group because of HIPAA. I just follow that. But if you guys want to know each other or have a preceptor, we will always do some kind of social here and there. But feel free to say, hey, I met somebody at your preceptor training, or there was another preceptor there that I was interested in. I'm sure they wouldn't mind sharing information. So I just tend to blind copy because I know privacy is respected to privacy. So any of you guys got any questions or anything else you want me to cover? You got any comments?
I'd just like to say thank you for taking time out of your work job to do this very worthwhile effort for our students and for the future of the profession. So we really, really thank you.
I think you made a good point. We're protecting our profession by doing this type of thing. I think that the standards are a great way for us to protect our profession, and we all value that. And we really, really appreciate you as preceptors, not only your time today, but every single day that you put into it. So I think you guys got any questions online? I think it's Asia and Rachel still out there. I was expecting a little bit more people online. So a lot of people RSVP, but I know everybody's so busy. However, please share if you want to. There's one extra. If you want to share with your coworkers, I'm going to email everybody that stuff so you've got it in digital format. But I did want to copy for those of you that showed up. Feel free to socialize a bit if you like. I know everyone's eager to go. I'm celebrating the end of orientation, so I'm going to grab some food on your way out, and I'm here for a few minutes if you just wanted to say hi. And thank you guys for attending, and I'm going to turn off the recording.